Some of those slides there, I'm going to spend a bit of time on. Some I will just go through very quickly, like this one, WACSO, West Australian Council of State School Organisations. We partner with P&Cs to advance public education, and that's great alliteration, but it's exactly what we do as well. All right, so we work with P&Cs to make public education better, and we do that through the P&Cs and the great work that P&Cs do. We do have a YouTube channel, which is called WACSO since 1921, all webinar videos and other videos. And so we might have guest speakers come in and do videos and webinars with us as well, which we're actually going to do in the next couple of weeks. They go up onto our YouTube channel. A lot of those videos on our YouTube channel in the description area actually have like a contents, and they have cue points. So if you don't want to watch the whole video, you just want to watch a certain part of the video, you can just scroll, hit that cue point. If you want to learn about types of meetings, there you go, 1956, click on that and it will take you to that part of the video. Very good, very handy. We would love you to watch the whole video, but we also know that sometimes you don't. You just want to get that little bit of information. You may find there's a little bit of a lag when I'm actually clicking between slides. That tends to happen with this type of software. All right, we do have a couple of websites. I'll refer to them tonight. They're actually down the bottom here. That's our normal WACSO one. That's where all our resources are. And then we have this one, which is called pncswa.org.au. And that is basically dedicated to our Constitution, the 2019 P&C Constitution, which is the latest one. And it's got the Constitution on there. It's got flowcharts. It's got Q&As. It's got a video on there as well. The Q&As are actually offline at the moment because they're being done, but they should be finished in the next couple of days. So if they don't work when you go to the website, just be a bit patient. They're going to be updated in the next few days. A lot of your Q&As can actually be answered by calling into the WACSO office or emailing us as well. And there is my email address down the bottom, training@waxo.wa.edu.au. Few new people coming in. Great. We have 29 people online now. I'll put 3 copies there just to fill the screen up. You don't need 3 copies, you need 1 copy, and they're coming out to schools very soon. We're talking, there's been a little bit of a delay, but we're talking around about 2 weeks for the hard copy to get out to schools. But the actual PDF copy has been on our website, this website, for about 2 weeks. So, for me, PDF version is always better than hard copies. Some people like hard copies, that's why we send them out to schools. All right, but you can download that, and it's completely updated every single year. All right, without being blasphemous, this is like the Bible for P&Cs. I do have to mention a couple of things, some of our other training resources as well. The P&C Finances online course has been up for well over a year. No, actually, just under a year, I should say. And that a lot of people have done that, and we've got some great feedback on that. It takes around about 60 to 90 minutes to complete that. And speaking of 60 to 90 minutes, we're probably looking around the middle of that, around about 75 to 90 minutes or whatever for this webinar tonight. Get on, do that P&C Finances online course. You'll find the link from our website. And once you've completed it, you get a certificate of completion from us. Very, very handy. It's all about P&C financial governance, and it's not just for your executive, it's not just for your treasurer, it's for every member of your P&C to understand good financial governance in your association. All right, questions tonight. Please type the questions in the chat function as they arise. The chat function is moderated. Now, it's not moderated at the moment, but I'm going to turn it on to moderate now. I am operating 3 screens at the moment by myself, so if I'm a bit slow with things, please forgive me. All right, so I've just popped chat moderation on. What that means is when you type your question in, you won't see it appear in the chat function until I give it the tick of approval. All right. So I will address the questions at the midpoint and at the end, and probably after a certain section, which probably the section that most of you have come on for tonight. Look, questions on other topics. We've got a lot to get through tonight. So questions on other topics addressed at the end if we've got time for it. AGM is our focus tonight. All right. but we're always contactable here. You can shoot an email through to us. You can call the office. We're quite happy to have a chat with you. I've put photos there just to remind me to ask you, because it's quite unique this year and you're going to have different types of AGMs out there. If your group, your association approves of it, and you can get a photo for us, for our P&C Voice, for our website, for Facebook, we would love those things. So if you can get a photo of your AGM and everybody thinks, yeah, that's fine, we'll get it through to WAXO, please do that and send that through to us, and you can put it through to training, and then I'll put it on to our communications and research officer to contact you about that. Okay, so what are we going to cover tonight? We are going to cover your AGM, the purpose of the AGM, why we actually have it, you know, the rules, the laws, the legislation that cover AGM, what you do pre-AGM, the agenda for the AGM, post-AGM, what you do after AGM, and then a few handover tips. Now, that is a small part of the component of tonight. This is the major part, and you're going to see me drawing all over the screen tonight because I like doing it. All right, and I'm going to highlight the salient points, and it's probably going to get fairly messy. All right, so what do we actually do an annual general meeting for? Well, first of all, we have to satisfy requirements under legislation. This here is the Associations and Corporations Act 2015 piece of legislation. All right. You have an AGM so that you can present your annual financial statements, a review or audit, if you have to do one, and hopefully most of you know about that now, and a solvency statement. All right. So those in particular, those ones there, are a requirement that are things that are required under your AGM. All right. You have to have that there. The other things you have to do under your with your AGM is a presentation of your non-financial reports. That is your annual reports. Elections, of course, that's really, really important because all positions on the P&C are retired at the AGM. All right, and new elections take place. You don't just roll over roles to the next year. I mean, someone can put their hand up and nominate again, that's fair enough, but all positions are retired. Appointments to all people as well. Appointments to different positions on the P&C or perhaps to WAXO conference. General business as well. There will be some motions that you need to pass to get actions going for the year so you can hit the ground running. And then, of course, attract new members. Now, generally, the AGM is the meeting of the year that you get most people attending. All right. Maybe a little bit different this year, but generally that's the way it is. And then by the end of the year, that's probably the last meeting is one of the ones where you get the least people attending. But the AGM is a chance for you to reinforce your brand and culture. So you show you're an organized body, you're a professional body, have a sense of humor, you have good governance, and you have a bit of fun as well. All right. Sounds a bit like a Tinder profile, but it's your AGM, it's your P&C profile. That's what you're looking at. And you want to build that and reinforce that brand and culture for everybody out there because you want people to come back to your P&C. Before we go any further, let's address this. And before we go any further into the depths of the AGM, let's address this first because it's probably why a lot of people have come on tonight. And if you drop out after this, I completely understand it. That's fine. You want to know about what to do during COVID-19 and how to deal with your AGM there. First of all, let's talk about the school site side of things. All right. And this is an ever-changing landscape. So in the last 2 weeks, I think we've probably had 3 different changes to this. And next week, it could actually change again. It might change back to something, but I have to give how it stands at the moment, at this point in time. Definitely not indoors on school sites. All right. So you probably understand that most of that you cannot have a meeting indoor on school sites, no matter what your vaccination status is, whether you're wearing a mask or whatever, you just can't have that. Outdoors on school site, we've had a little bit of different opinion or actually information in the last few days as well. And I think it's probably going to come down to talking to your principal about this. But the word is that they're trying to discourage gathering on school sites or gatherings or a gathering of parents on school sites, which would mean a P&C AGM as well. So probably in your mind, put that out as an option for your P&C. All right. So not indoors on school site and probably not outdoors on school site as well. Okay, so Amanda has commented, we asked about that and our principal said no straight up. All right, that's fair enough too. Okay. All right, so if you don't have them on school site, what are your other options? Well, we have a document that comes out about, well, it's actually on our website, and it's about AGMs in the times of COVID-19. And this is part of that document. So you have options like your local park, local community space, library, recreation centre, meeting hall, local cafe or pub, all right, community resource centres, and then mixed locations. All right, so about some of these places, just remember your insurances. So you may need insurances. We've had a couple of phone calls and contacts today about insurances for using a hall for the AGM. All right. And that will be a certificate of insurance that you may require. And especially if it's a local government association that is actually running or looks after that venue. And you will require possibly public liability insurance as well. We've had a couple of P&Cs ask us if it's okay to hold it in their home, like in a private home. That's something we probably discourage. And the reason for that is you have to think about people's safety, injuries, possible damage to property, possible property going missing, and whether insurances cover those types of things. So we would say a private home, probably not a good option. Plus, that second point there, it's not really a neutral location. Plus, you have to clean your house up. All right. And neutral locations are what we want. And with some of these, on the side of this too, is that this might actually be advantageous for your P&C because some people actually don't see a school site as a neutral venue. Not everybody had a great time when they went to school, and some people have different opinions of schools. Some people culturally see schools in certain ways. So this may be a good way of actually getting more people into your P&C is actually having that AGM for once off-site. If you're talking about a local park, it's probably the elements and the amount of seating that you have to look at, and how many people can actually be seated there and how you can deal with that. It's a possibility, and we saw a photo a couple of slides back of a P&C that actually did one there. We had a nice photo of that. So, that's an option for your P&C. Local community spaces, recreation centre, meeting hall, you've got to think about insurances, of course, but you also have to think about these will require COVID-19, evidence of vaccination as well, plus potential hiring costs. And this may exclude some people from your P&C. So have a good think about that. Some P&Cs out in the country have their meetings, their general meetings in the pub, which is great. It's wonderful for people. But other things to think about as well is the mandatory vaccination side of that, the mask and check-in requirements, and of course, some people won't attend that type of venue because of their personal or their cultural beliefs as well. So that may be excluding people. Some smaller and bigger country towns have community resource centres, which are wonderful facilities, and they have meeting spaces, and they actually have, most of them have the technology in there to be able to run a meeting quite nicely as well. And plus they've got usually got good internet connection. But once again, think about the exclusion part of that. And then a couple of P&Cs we've heard from already as well, actually going to mix up locations, or they're going to do a mix of things. They will actually, the last one I spoke to, they're going to hold it at Dome Cafe, and then they're also going to allow people to Zoom in. So they've got an online meeting going at an off-site school meeting or off-school site meeting as well. Now that takes quite a bit of setting up to do, but it's a good way to show respect and that you want people into your P&C. What you're basically looking at is something that's going to suit the majority. You are never, and you know this, you are never going to please absolutely everybody. Don't forget, if you've got a question about this, I'll address them at the end of this COVID-19 section before we go any further. So if you want to type into the chat function your question, you can do that. All right, here's the other option, and we know that a lot of P&Cs are choosing to go this way. And we've changed things around a little bit to actually allow you to do that. We are not contradicting the Constitution, but we're working within the flexibility of the Constitution. Right, so Zoom, most people are familiar with that, Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, phone. What am I using tonight? I'm using Click Meeting. I probably wouldn't recommend that for a meeting. It's great for webinars, not so great for meetings. Zoom is great, Microsoft Teams is great, and Cisco WebEx is great. Personally, I like those two because I've used them the most. All right. And if we're looking at a screen where you've got people on the screen here, it depends on how good your computer is and how good people out there computer is as well. But Zoom will allow you 49 people on a screen, and Microsoft Teams will allow you 49 people on that one screen as well. They look very, very small, of course, but you can see them on there. All right. Just with that Microsoft Teams, you see this little link down here. If your P&C is AC&C registered, you can go to connectingup.org and you can make application to get Microsoft Business Basic for free for your organization. And that is obviously Microsoft Teams, because Microsoft is part of that. Now, what I mean by a Business Basic account is that you get Teams, you get all the other Office applications as well for your P&C. Now, it's the browser-based, the online version, so it's not the downloadable apps, but still free for your organization to use. You've got OneDrive, so you've got storage, you've got PowerPoint, you've got Excel, you've got Word on there, you've got Teams, and the Teams is probably the one you'll use the most because it integrates everything else. But that would be really good for your P&C. But you must be registered with the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission as a small charity, which a lot of P&Cs are. But then you'll go through connectingup.org to actually get that package from Microsoft for nothing. All right, it's a donation from Microsoft to not-for-profits. You will need to do this type of meeting a microphone, some type of sound. So it's either a speaker or a headset, and of course a camera. Camera's optional. Now, hear and being heard is a minimum. All right, so you can hear, or people can hear, and they can be heard. So that's a minimum. But seeing and being seen is preferable. So having a camera there so you can see people is what you really, really want. All right. Now, you also can make great use of screen sharing, and that can save documentation sometimes. So you'll probably bring the agenda up on screen. You might want to show a video, you might want to do a PowerPoint, those types of things. It gives you a lot of flexibility when you're working in a Teams or Zoom or WebEx. And you can also record, but I do ask you to ask your people there whether they're okay with you recording. All right. But it's a nice way to do things as well. All right, so Zoom, Microsoft Teams, they are great options. Cisco WebEx is also another option, but I'm not too familiar with it. Just make sure that you give people, oops. Sorry, I've got the slides in the wrong order, but I'll go into that very soon. All right, let's set this up for running a meeting online. Now, we have updated our membership form. So the one that you normally get, that is in the P&C handbook, it will look a little bit different than this one, and you can download this one from our website. And this is the part here that's different, because this has got extra options for if you're doing an online meeting. All right, so it's got an updated membership form. The requirements to become a member and to be at a meeting and to be elected to positions or to vote or to have a say at a meeting is that you have completed a membership form. You have paid your fee and you attend the meeting. All right. Now, if you're going for a position, but you've really got to do something else that night, attendance for 5 minutes is enough for you to say, right, I've actually met those 3 requirements and I'm fine. I'm fine as a member. All right. But it's do the membership form, do the fee, attend the meeting. Become part of that quorum for the meeting. So we suggest, and you'll have to negotiate with your school on this, is that you have a drop box at the front office. And in that drop box, or next to that drop box, you have an envelope, or you have some way for them to deposit a fee. You also have on there, you also have the membership form there as well. On that membership form, you might have something like an account number that actually people can transfer money to rather than drop money in, but also leave an option for people to be able to drop money in as well. They might want to sticky tape it to their membership form or whatever. All right. Proof of payment. It might be a photograph of that they put through to you, or it might be a screenshot of the transfer to the P&C. And just remember that sometimes transfers, EFT transfers to bank accounts don't always happen on the same day. So it is a good idea to actually screenshot that as a confirmation that a person is paid, and that comes through to your treasurer. Now, with a normal AGM, people will come to the meeting, they'll fill out a membership form, and when I say normal, I mean face-to-face. They'll fill out a membership form, they come to the meeting, fill out a membership form, pay a fee, get a receipt at that point in time, grab a seat, wait for the meeting to start. If you're doing that online, that can't happen at all. All right. So you've got to have a date and time that you cut off the meeting. That you cut off becoming a member. So it might be on the day of the meeting, it might be 9 o'clock in the morning. You give people enough time to actually do the deposit, fill out the membership form, get that through to you. But you have to have a specific time where you cut off the membership, because you cannot do it immediately before the meeting. You're just unable to do that online. All right, so you've got everybody's memberships. You think you've got everybody's memberships. The meeting's not far away. Create a quick guide or provide a link to an online guide. And what I mean about that is the actual platform that you are using. Now, you don't have to go recreate things. Simple guides are on YouTube. Microsoft Docs have simple guides as well. So provide a link to people for people to actually use. Now, you don't have to go recreate everything. Don't reinvent the wheel. There are guides that you can find online to help people out. A lot of people will be very familiar with this now. We've been, become a habit over the last 2 or 3 years for most workplaces, but some people will not be sure about certain things. All right. So provide a guide and provide an open line of communication where you can help people out. Just like we've done tonight, and I've put the music on to test whether your audio is working and my audio is working, my microphone is working. Do the same with your meeting, because you don't want to have a meeting started at 7 o'clock and then you spend 10 minutes trying to sort out or troubleshoot your audio and video options. So ask people to attend 5 to 10 minutes before the meeting starts, so you can do any troubleshooting. All right, because there's always going to be something not plugged in, some settings not right, maybe someone hasn't got their monitor on, the Wi-Fi connection might not be working well. People have to troubleshoot certain things. Also, be aware of backgrounds. Now, the great thing about Zoom and Teams is that you can actually put a fake background up there, but please remind people to be aware of backgrounds to their videos. Right at the start, you'll need to do a roll call and a head count and a membership check. Now, there may be people who are online that you don't have a membership form for, and there may be people who you don't have the fee for. And at that point in time, that means that they're not actually a member. And if they're not a member, they're not counted in your quorum. And if they're not a member, they don't have speaking or voting rights at the meeting. And you need to make them aware of that so that they don't vote at the meeting. And they're not counted as part of quorum. Now, one person to host, and they control the screen sharing, the muting, which is fabulous fun, and the cameras as well. All right. I would suggest, even though you have everybody out there, that your secretary and your president are still sitting together. And when by your president, I mean the person chairing the meeting. So your chair and your secretary are still physically sitting together, and they might have separate devices, but they're sitting together so that they can have a quick chat between each other when they're running and controlling the meeting. All right. Voting by show of hand or by voice. And of course, you've got little emojis that you can use. This is one for Zoom here. Raise your hand, you can vote like that. You can hold your hand up in front of the webcam and vote like that as well. And that emoji is there because it means have a sense of humor about this. It is not always going to go right. Have a laugh. Things will go wrong. Don't take it too seriously. Of course, you have to get through your meeting, but just have a bit of a laugh about it, and then move on from it. All right. Now that can run fairly smoothly, but then you get to the point where you come to an election and 3 people want to be president, like it happens all the time. But you might get more than one person who wants to be elected to a certain position or wants to be in a certain position. So you need to go to a ballot vote. All right. Now, at a normal meeting, face-to-face meeting, a ballot vote's fairly easy to do. All right. However, at this type of meeting, it's a little bit more difficult. Your returning officers must be appointed. They are people that do the count of the ballots. Now, I would suggest let's just make it easy and appoint them, and that is the chair and the secretary of the meeting. All right, they will be the people who will do the count of the ballots. Now, it's going to be complicated, and you have to find other people to do that if it's the president and the secretary whose roles are up for grabs, and there's an election for that. You'll need to sort that out on the night. But to start with, president and the secretary are your returning officers. There are a number of websites that allow people to vote anonymously, and that is slido.com. There's probably quite a few of them. Slido.com is one, Kahoot is another, and people can actually input something anonymously. All right, so you can use that. What you're going to have to do is make sure that people, when they vote, they either, depending what they're voting for, it's either yes or no, or they write a name, or they write abstain. All right. Even if they don't want to vote yes or no or whatever, they still need to vote abstain so that when the votes come through, you can count them and make sure that they equal the number of people who are members. And if that doesn't equal, then you may need to go to a vote again. All right. So you're comparing the number of votes with the members. So you need to be quite explicit about that and say to people, if you don't want to vote, I still want you to write abstain, and it will come through anonymously as abstain. Now, if you don't want to do all that and you think it's too complex, you can pass a motion at the beginning of the meeting that the only type of voting that you're going to use on that night is show of hands voting, and that is even for elected positions. So if there's more than one person for a position, you are still going to go to show of hands voting. If you do that right at the beginning of the meeting, there's no secret about it. People are aware that if they put their hand up to go for a position, it's going to go to a show of hands voting. So there is a number of ways you can handle ballot voting. All right, so what do you do before the meeting? Now, once again, you may need to go online with this, and this is not in your constitution, so we don't mandate that this takes place, but we reckon it's really, really good practice. You work out what your executive members' plans are. Now, you probably already know that, but at an executive committee meeting prior to the AGM, you can work out whether people are intending to nominate again or they've had enough, they're not going to do that, and you probably already know that about some people, as I said. All right, so you can work out what positions are really, really going to need to fill. Plan the AGM, the date, the time, the notice, the financial motions, of course, because they need 7 days, and the marketing and the promoting of your AGM as well. Right now, AGM is a type of general meeting, so you require 7 days notice of that. But we don't think 7 days is enough for an AGM. But in the Constitution, it's 7 days. We recommend 2 to 3 weeks at least notice for your AGM. And that's what you're doing at this executive committee meeting prior. You are planning that. Bring all your up-to-date and accurate financial documents to that. If there is a review or if there's an audit report, you will need to bring that as well, of course. You will also need the solvency declaration. Now, This is something different. It's been brought in the last few years. Solvency declaration is a declaration that you sign as an executive to tell the P&C, after looking through your financial documents, that declaration tells the P&C that you are solvent. And that means that basically you have enough cash and assets on hand to pay all debts and liabilities when they are due. All right. So obviously that is fluid, that can change over time. But at that point in time, to the best of your knowledge, you are solvent. So you can sign that solvency declaration, or the president signs that, the executive approves for the president to sign that, and that is presented at the AGM with all your other financial documents. That is your declaration to everybody that we're good, we're a going concern, we're fine, we're solvent, we can hit the ground running for the year. And if you have to do, or you choose to do, a review or audit, you can probably do some research, get some research and quotes at that executive committee meeting as well, get some ideas around that. Pip has just suggested, and I'll just go back a bit, that schools have WebEx paid versions, great, and can potentially schedule meetings for you and then add you as a host, and then you can use their account. I think that's what you're saying, Pip. What a great idea. Excellent. Okay, what else do you have to do at the AGM? You have to prepare an agenda, of course, for the meeting. You are sorting through your wish list from the principal and school staff. That is not mandatory, but that is best practice, that you get a wish list for the year and that you can organise your fundraising and your calendar of annual P&C events through that. And that's obviously a draft because it needs to be approved at your AGM. So having a wish list leads to your calendar of annual P&C events. That is something that is covered in our e-learning course, our online course about P&C finances as well. We go into that a bit more in a bit more depth. Financial motions for the AGM, all right, as well. There will be a number of them. I'll go through them later. They will require 7 days notice, of course, and terms of references for your subcommittees. Not all P&Cs have subcommittees, but if you do have a subcommittee, you have to have a terms of reference for it. You do not have to reinvent the wheel, write it from scratch, because we've got great templates on our website. And when I say website, I mean our resources website, which is that one I'm just underlining. Right, you will then need to send out the agenda. So you send out a written notice of meeting, that is a notice that the meeting or the AGM has been called and what the date and time for that meeting is and how you're going to run it, whether it's going to be face-to-face at a venue or it's going to be online and what platform you're actually going to use. All right, you then send out, once you've got that confirmed, you send out your agenda and your financial written reports. Financial reports, your written reports. So they are going to detail things like the elections, the appointments that you need to make, your general business, your financial motions, your terms of reference, all your financial documents, all those written reports. So you send these out by email, it's probably going to have quite a few attachments to that. All right. But that is really, really necessary if people are going to do it online, if you're going to do it by Zoom or Teams, because people can have that sitting in the background or they can print it out for themselves. Also, having those sent out beforehand can save time through your meetings. So you don't have to go through everything individually because people have had time beforehand to read through those things. So before the meeting, on the day, have all your forms ready. Of course, this is for the face-to-face stuff, because if you're doing it online, you've already got these done. You've already got them back to you. Attendance register. All right, that's for face-to-face. Membership form and register of members for face-to-face. Office bearer and executive committee nomination form as well. Copies, links to the P&C constitution. Copies, of course, if it's at the meeting, if it's face-to-face, or link if you are doing it online. All right. The effective P&C association guide, that's this document here. We can send copies of this out to you if you put a request to us, or you can download them from our website and print them out for your people. Face-to-face, if you're going to do a ballot, or quite possibly there's going to be a ballot there, so have it ready anyway. So all it is little squares of plain paper. There's nothing fancy about it at all. All right. And of course, for a face-to-face, you're going to need a cash box, you're going to need float as well. because people are going to, hopefully people will bring along a gold coin, but some people will rock up with notes as well. So have a bit of a float going. I'll have it sitting there ready to give change with. Membership forms, as I said before, this is the P&C membership form. You won't find that one because that's brand new. You won't find that in the handbook. It's only been updated in the last few days. Download that from our website, and this website here. You can download this one, the P&C Office Bearer and Executive Committee nomination form as well, but also that one is actually in our P&C handbook. That hasn't changed. All right, so the two forms that you actually required there at your AGM. Now, for your secretaries out there, they are going to need this document. And this document is called the Register of Members and Record of Office Holders. Now, a Register of Members is in fact a legal document under the Associations and Corporations Act 2015. It's one of the few that your P&C actually holds. And as a person becomes a member, your secretary will need to list their name on here. And it will have the date they joined, the name of that person, and a choice of either a residential address, a postal address, or an email address. Most people will choose email address, all right? Whether that person is an office bearer or executive committee member. And the date there, no, we won't go into that. That is suspension and expulsion, and I hope we never have to get into those three right-hand columns there, all right? But they need to be on that document. So that is a register of members and a record of office holders, and it's a legal document, and your secretary needs to have possession of that. So as a person becomes a member, they need to have their name listed on that. Tanya, can I suggest that you, Tanya's just having a problem, it says can't load the file. If that's the case, Tanya, I suggest just completely log out, close the screen down, and use the invite that came through to your email address to open that link to open things up again. And hopefully that works. That usually resolves most problems. Right, so at the meeting. All right, so at the start of the meeting, you need a standard agenda format. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole agenda tonight because there is a standard agenda that you'll find in the Secretary's Guide and the President's Guide, but I'm only going to cover the actual additions tonight, what is different at the AGM, those little things that change. That's what I'll have a look at in a minute. If it's face-to-face, please remind people to see the Secretary to become members, all right? And so they can do that before the meeting starts. Remind about the office bearer and executive committee nomination forms and the disclosure statement. Now, there is a disclosure statement on there that talks about people who have been convicted of certain things in the last number of years and also have been declared legally insolvent in the last few years or bankrupt. And that is a disclosure statement there because those people will not be permitted to be part of your management or executive committee of your P&C. All right, so there is a tick box there that people say, yes, I'm fine with this. That is on the office bearer and executive committee nomination form. Obviously, check for quorum and open the meeting. Start the meeting with a brief outline of the agenda. And that's always good practice. Whenever I do training, either here, I did it tonight, or I do it face-to-face or running a meeting, go through the agenda so people know what you're going to do. I mean, even tonight I went through, I've got 46 slides going on. Those types of things get people prepared for the night. And then give an expected finish time as well. All right. People love turning up to meetings. People love leaving meetings, and they want to know that their time is used properly. Okay. Now, as I said, I'm not going to go through every single part of the agenda, but I'm just going to go through the ones that are a little bit different. All right. So reports. And you do have reports in your normal meetings, but in your AGM, they are a little bit different because really they are a summary of the whole year. So your president's report would be a summary of everything that you did in the last financial year and possibly what they hope for the next year, you know, what their vision is for the next year as well. You will have financial reports, your solvency statement, we've talked about that, your annual financial statements, and your review or audit report if that is required. Subcommittee reports from all of your subcommittees as well. So a general overview of what's happened in the last year. And then, of course, a principals report, and everybody loves hearing that as well. All right. And that will probably be achievements in the last year, you know, what the outcomes were, you know, what bands and levels were achieved by the kids, and then what they hope for the year ahead. And just like anything else, they need to be tabled, it needs to be seconded, and then you need to vote to adopt or receive them. And that's the official wording, that they are adopted or received at the meeting. All right, with the elections, you need to explain the procedure to people, and you can get the current office bearers to actually explain their roles as well. And be truthful about the roles. If you are running a canteen and a uniform shop and you've got employees in the canteen, the treasurer wouldn't say that it takes me 5 minutes a week to look after that role. You're going to be truthful with it. You're going to say it's at least 60 to 90 minutes a week I have to actually spend on that job. So they explain the role, the parts of the role as well. If they can't do this, there is a nice little summary of it in that booklet called the Effective P&C Association, which I talked about earlier. Nice little summary of each of the roles. Now, here is a change from the last few years. And so you new P&Cs here, haven't run one before. This is a change. This is the first time this is done. We have actually looking at, we have a recommended election process now, as we haven't had before. All right. Now, we are going to put this annual conference this year, and it will be a slight change to the P&C Constitution on running a P&C election, or actually a change to the standing orders and rules of debate, which is part of the Constitution. So it's not directly the Constitution, but it's part of that. So what we are going to do, looking at it now, is a recommended way to do it, but we're going to make it a mandated way to do it for P&Cs. So the election process. Appoint returning officers. I did explain exactly what they are before. They collect and count ballots. Nominations can be accepted prior or from the floor, which is a question someone had earlier. Now, what I mean by prior is you put a nomination in before, so you fill out the nomination form and you send it through. Or from the floor means on the night. I might be at a meeting and go, yeah, okay, I can do that role, and I'll put my hand up for that role. That's what from the floor means. All right. So we're saying you can accept nominations either way. Hold each of your elections separately and don't rush through them. Give people time to think about things. There is a recommended order at the moment, which is president, then vice president, secretary, treasurer, exec committee, and then you go into other positions like coordinators for the canteen or the uniform shop, conveners of the subcommittees, and also the subcommittees themselves. If the president role is contested, then a neutral person will chair, maybe the vice president steps up or the secretary, while that election is taking place. So the president shouldn't chair the meeting while that election is taking place. All right, so someone has to step up and fill in for that role. By the way, you'll actually find that in the P&C handbook, our recommendation, which hopefully will become a mandated process. There is no seconding of nominations. Now, WACSO has a state council, which is like a board that runs WACSO. And when we have elections, we don't even have seconding of nominations. So we're not asking P&Cs to have seconding of nominations. If someone nominates, they don't need to have someone to second it or approve it. Okay, so there's no seconding of nominations. Generally, if there's someone that nominates and you're like, no, we don't want that person to be on that role, be the treasurer, then someone's going to need to put their hand up to run against them and to go to an election. Read out all the nominations, of course, whether they're prior or from the floor as well. Multiple nominations, goes to a ballot, and the ballot papers are responsibility of the returning officers. Ballot papers, I've got face-to-face there because ballot papers are only done in face-to-face. Use Slido or Kahoot or something else if you're doing it online. So this is how the election process works. All right, so item 4.1 on the agenda is the election of the P&C president. Do we have any nominations for the position of president tonight? Now, if you only have one, and give it a bit of time, say, is there any other nominations? Do we have anybody else who would like to nominate for the position? Time. Let it go. Nobody puts their hand up. Okay. No seconding, remember that. Amanda is elected to the position of P&C president unopposed. Congratulations, Amanda. Well done. All right. That's how it works if you've only got one nomination. If you have more than one nomination, you will need to state a ballot is required and ask if both parties are still interested in running for the position. That's an important question to ask. That may save you a lot of hassle, because someone might actually say, no, I'm right, I'll pull out, that's fine, I'll let them do it. Hopefully both people don't say that, but if one person does that, that will save you a lot of time. State each will need to give a 1-minute address outlining the qualities, and that's fair enough too, because if you want a person in the position, you need to know that you want the best person for that position. If 2 or 3 people got their hands up, it's good to hear from them, what their qualities are, what their experience is. Returning officers will hand out the ballots, or you will use the online app if online. You will then, or the returning officers will then count the ballots, and they will inform the chair. Now, the chair is a person running the meeting, all right? And that decision is, of course, final. However, there is a chance that you actually may have a tie. Now, in a face-to-face meeting, if a tie is there, you've got the same amount of votes for each person, then you actually go by lot, and that is in the Constitution. Lot means basically a name drawn out of a hat, or a hand behind the back, or pick the shortest straw, all right? And it may seem a little bit simple, but that's actually how it's done, and that's how it's decided. Online, that is actually a little bit more difficult, but you do have some online games, things that you can actually use to do that. For example, the random number generator between 1 and 10. All right, you two people, pick a number between 1 and 10, and that random number generator will generate a number, and whoever gets closest to it, that is by lot. So that is another way of actually doing that as well. All right. May seem a bit funny to decide a position by that, but that is how the Constitution operates. It's actually how the WAXO Constitution, how we run as well. It's the same thing, and it's been done in the past. Commiserations to the loser, condolences to the loser, but Amanda is elected to the position of P&C president by ballot. Congratulations. And then destroy the ballots. And that's actually a motion. If they're physical paper ballots, there's a motion that's put to the meeting that the ballots be destroyed. That's seconded, voted on. Yes, we vote to destroy the ballots, and then the returning officers will go destroy the ballots. In effect, the only people that ever see the ballots are the 2 returning officers. There will then be appointments. Now, appointments are like you're appointing a reviewer or auditor. Not every P&C will need to do a review or audit. Some are required to, and then some. And if you want more information on that, please contact the office. I'm not going to go into that now, but we'll be able to explain it through email or over the phone. Or your P&C may actually choose to have a review or an audit. There's also the additional signatory. It's not mandatory, it's an option. You've got 4 signatories in your P&C, which are your 4 office bearers. But the 5th one you can possibly have, but it will need to be someone from the executive committee to make the 5th signatory. Major reason for having a 5th signatory is it's someone else to sign when the other ones can't be found. All right. Or that people who are on office bearers actually might have a personal relationship or a business relationship with each other, so they can't co-sign anyway. So having a 5th person will make that a little bit easier. And then, of course, there's delegates for WAXO annual conference as well. Hopefully, a few of you people online tonight have actually been to conference. It's a great event, and there's a nice photo of it there, voting taking place at the conference. General business on your agenda. So we're up to the next section. We've gone through elections there. Up to general business. General business will be motions that are put forward to pass and approve things so that you can get business going for the year ahead. All right. Terms of references for your subcommittees. That is number 1 there. They need to be passed, appointed for your subcommittees. Your school wish list for approval to the P&C. Yes, we have this wish list from the school. We're going to approve this wish list, and this is what we're going to do the year ahead. And then, of course, that is attached really to your P&C annual calendar or your fundraising events. That is approved as well. Now, remember, you can, down the track, you can back out of those things. All right, as long as you haven't spent money on them, you might get to the point in term 4 where everybody's completely fatigued. Things have happened. There's no way you could actually do it. there's a big outbreak of COVID or something like that, or some other pandemic, God forbid, and you can't actually do that. But of course, you can then rescind that later on down the track. But if you do it right at the beginning of the year and you pass these things, it does make your organisation for the year a lot easier. Some of you will have a debit card, and every year you need to review the terms of use for that debit card and also the people that can actually use that debit card. All right, so that will need to be looked at your meeting as well. And then your contingency emergency spending motions. And an example of that we have in our handbook, and I go through this at training as well when I do that. Here's an example of a contingency or emergency spending motion that you pass at the beginning of the year, and it actually makes life easier through the year. It gives you a bit more freedom to do things because you have passed at the beginning of the year. It applies throughout the year. That the Treasurer and President together have delegated authority to spend up to $200 per event on unforeseen expenses, with a motion to retrospectively approve expenditure to be moved at the next general meeting. All right. That gives you freedom throughout the year. If you're having sausage sizzle at Bunnings and you've run out of sausages at 2 o'clock and they hate that, all right, you have to keep going. You have to keep cooking till 4. They can go down to the local Woolies or Coles or wherever they get sausages from, and they can spend up to that amount. Now, we put it at $200. And I've got that in red because that's our idea or our recommendation, but that's completely up to your P&C what that amount is. I wouldn't go too high with that. And you can also put in here that you could actually put a term date, say $200 per term, all right, which would restrict spending to that term. And you can also put an end date on this to be moved at the next general meeting, and this motion to be valid until AGM 2023. So it doesn't apply forever and ever. It's only applying for this year, and then next year you can review it as well. You will find that will actually help you out a lot through your spending throughout the year, because it always happens. You always run out of things. You always need to go get something. And then, of course, other business and your next meeting. Now, other business, this is an AGM. We have certain business we're going to stick to. I would say if other business does come up at the end, you would say, okay, we're going to take that up at the next general meeting of the P&C, unless it was incredibly urgent and incredibly pressing. All right. Your meeting is not to be taken up by other business, and just to tell the people that bring up the other business that we will look at that, and then we will address it in the next general meeting of the P&C, which might be in a month or 3 weeks or whatever. And then you give the date of the next meeting, and you close the meeting, and that is done. Right, so you will have follow-ups after your AGM, things that you actually have to do. Well, first of all, you have to notify the principal of new office bearers. Of course, now if they're at the meeting, they're going to know that anyway, but we do have a nice little form that's in our P&C handbook that you fill out and you give to the principal, and that's an official notification of the new office bearers of your P&C, and that the principal then will have authority to make that public and use that in publications. Let us know of your new office bearers and some other details as well, and most of you would have done that through the website before, and it's a form that's on our website and that comes directly through to us. We need to know that. The ATO, change of details for the Australian Taxation Office, please get that done every year, because if you leave it a couple of years, it is a pain to chase up people who've left the school to get them to change details with the ATO. Yeah, it's a pain. So please do that every single year. Your annual information statements will need to be done as well. Now, if you're with the AC, if you're registered with the AC&C, do that first, because if you do that first, you won't have to do associations online, because AC&C share their information with associations online. If you are AC&C registered and you forget to do that one first, and you do associations online first, they don't share their information with AC&C, so you will have to go and do AC&C as well. I hope that makes sense. It's complex, it's convoluted. Just do AC&C first. If you are not registered with AC&C at all, you don't have to worry about that one. You just do associations online. They like to make things complex, and they do it really well. Okay, handover hints and tips. Now, I'm going to spend a very short amount of time on this as well. And the reason being is that we, in the P&C handbook, have got a brand new document out, which is summary of the affairs of the association. Now, this is just not a handover document. This is a great document for your P&C to keep updated all the time. And it's got the main things on it that your P&C actually needs, those records that your P&C needs. So down the line, when things change or you've got office bearers change over, people can have a look at this and they can know what the legal registered name of the P&C is. Now, that may sound a bit strange, but if you are dealing with the Department of Mines, Industry Regulation and Safety, they actually need to know the proper legal name of your P&C. If you're registered as Royal Street Parents and Citizens Association Incorporated and you fill out a document that says Royal Street P&C, they're not going to accept it, all right, because it's not the formal name for your P&C. Your incorporated association registration number, you might not know that. We know that. You contact us for that. Date of incorporation, same again. AGM date, other dates as well, your reporting responsibilities and the due date of each of those reporting responsibilities. It's a great little document. A summary of your financial year and the bank accounts that you have, your current signatories, if you've got a bookkeeper, what their contact details are, your auditor or a reviewer as well. If you have a common seal, who holds that, who are the authorised users, all your tax information as well. You can see how this benefit when you're actually handing over roles if you keep this information up to date. And that's really important part of it, isn't it? Actually keeping it up to date. Your reporting responsibilities as well in terms of like your office bearer notifications, business activity statements with the ATO, superannuation, if that's required as well. And it's got all the due dates down there, which is really handy for you. Ready reckoner for that. And it's 4 pages long. So there's other information on it as well. Committee meetings, when you hold them, how often you hold them, associations online, who are the primary user, authorised users, AC&C details, lots and lots of different details on here as well. Okay. It is a great handover document, but bigger than that, it's actually a great record keeping document for your P&C. So there is that great guide in the P&C handbook. There's actually there's another guide in there as well in the P&C handbook, which goes into a little bit more detail. But using either of those documents is really good for your handover. And do as quickly as possible. And the president will need to take control of that. They will need to get the whip out, basically crack it and say, look, we need to hand over. We need all that documentation handed over and take control of that. Right. And sometimes people don't hand documentation back. There is a legal requirement to do that now. It's been enforced for about the last 4 or 5 years that P&Cs or all associations out there are legal requirement to return records of the association. All right. And if people don't, you can sort of follow up with a letter to them, which states that there is a legal requirement to do that. And there are fines set for people who don't. You can also organise a meeting between the new and the old. Now, some people won't want to participate, but some people will. And you basically meet with your new people and your old people, talk about the positions. It's a good idea too, also. And I've spoken to a number of people about this in the last few days who have said that they're stepping down from positions, but they've also said that I'm prepared to mentor a person until they don't need it anymore. And there is a fine line between obviously mentoring and interfering in a position. And some people might not like a mentor at all, but some people, need someone to give them a bit of a hand. But to be able to offer that is great to new people. I've just stated that it's a legal requirement to hand over all documents of the association. You need to update details with us as soon as possible. Bank signatories, major priority. All right. And some banks can be a little bit tardy and they can ask for extra details. And yeah, I'm sorry, they can be a little bit of a pain. And we know this is a bit of a pain point for P&Cs, changing signatories with the bank. But the sooner you start it, the sooner it's going to get done. Okay. Documents, everything pertaining to the position obviously gets handed back. All your passwords, your Google, your OneDrive, Dropbox, TidyHQ, if you're part of that. Okay. Passwords need to be handed over. Email access needs to be handed over. Terms of reference need to be handed over as well. And your social media accounts for those terms of reference. your social media accounts and the terms of reference for those social media accounts. Some people might be moderators or admins on like things like Facebook as well. That will need to be handed over to the next person if they're not continuing in that role.